Superman Returns to the big screen, quite literally, within a couple of days, or it might even already be out, depending on when you're watching this video. But Superman Returns. Superman Returns was actually the first Superman film that I ever saw. I was about 8 years old at the time, I think, and I was staying with some very close family friends. And a guy for who all intents and purposes in this story is an older brother to me, basically comes and says, "Come on, Will, we're gonna go see Superman." And I remember my response was something to the effect of, "Ooh, nah, I don't want to do that. I don't care about Superman." And what he said next has just kind of stuck with me all these years later for some reason. I don't know why. I can still remember the look on his face and the words he said, which were, "But it's Superman." Growing up, I was never the biggest Superman fan. I never really had a lot of exposure to the character, and I was aware of, Christopher Reeve and the fact that Superman existed, and I never really watched Saturday morning cartoons though. I never really got exposed to the animated series, and funnily enough, even Batman at the time wasn't really on my radar at all. I was much more of a big Spider-Man kid, Star Wars. But Superman, nah, not interested. But nevertheless, I went along to the cinema and I saw Superman Returns. And for the first time in my life, I saw Superman doing Superman stuff, being Superman, saving lives, and just embodying everything about a man that I really thought I wanted to be, if that makes sense. And in my kind of little hyper-obsessed developing mind, I latched onto the character for a time. As I did, I had these little hyper fixations that I would get really invested in, and Superman for a time was one of them. I convinced my mum to buy me some Superman action figures. I got a hold of the movie and watched it on repeat. I even managed to get my hands on a copy of the Superman Returns video game because that was the closest thing that I could get to actually being Superman or feeling like I was Superman. I know that game is not very good looking back, and even looking at it now, it looked a lot better in my memory, but at the time it didn't matter. It made me feel like Superman, and this film did it. Obviously, down the line, I kind of understand why this film is not that highly regarded amongst the Superman fandom. I understand the problems with it and a few of the more glaring characterization issues with Superman in that film. But for a little 8-year-old kid, none of that stuff mattered. All I knew is that I was seeing a hero be a hero on the big screen in the truest form of truth, justice, and the American way. I'm Australian, ironically, but you know what I mean. Putting the needs of everyone else above his own purely because it's the right thing to do. Now down the line, of course, we got Henry Cavill and Zack Snyder's interpretation of the Man of Steel. And again, I gravitate very, very heavily towards those films and to that interpretation of the character. And I understand its divisiveness and that it's not necessarily seen as the glowing, perfect representation of Superman. But again, to me, that didn't matter. Of course, I was a bit older at the time once Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman was coming out. It was still Superman. A different take on the character, but Superman nonetheless. Superman is not really a character that I see much of myself in. He's not even a character that I really relate to all that much. But I wish I did. He's someone who represents the best of us, the best of humanity, and I am very much not the best of humanity, like far from it. And I wish I could see more of myself in the Man of Steel, and I'd like to think maybe one day I could. But I think that's why I gravitate more towards characters like Batman, at least at this point in my life, because I feel much more in tune with a character who is constantly battling with inner turmoil. I wish I was better than I was. I routinely let myself down and those around me, where I don't think I'm good enough. And I know I can be selfish and unkind and full of spite. Characters like Batman make a lot more sense to me, or at least feel far more relatable. That kind of internal war and battle within oneself that's always ongoing. But Superman gives us something to aspire to. And I mean, that is the point of the character. That's who he is. Someone with seemingly limitless power, doing nothing more and nothing less than simply the right thing. Over and over and over again. He is someone I wish I was more like. And he's someone I think we all could be a little more like. The world needs that. We all need that. And I understand that Superman means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. These different interpretations of Superman have meant different things to different people. And understandably, we're human, we get very defensive about the things that we assign and ascribe meaning to in our lives. Looking back, Superman Returns is not a good Superman film. But for little 8-year-old me, that didn't matter. In that film, I still saw someone I could aspire to be like. why am I telling you all this? What am I droning on about? What's the point? Well, I think it's this. Before you see Superman, I want you to remember that this might not be your Superman, but he will be to someone. And that matters. Just like it mattered to little 8-year-old me seeing Superman on the big screen for the first time and realizing that, hey, maybe I could be like that someday. I'm still hoping for that. That's what this Superman is going to do to an entirely new generation of kids, and even some people who are, much older than kids who've probably never really had much exposure to the character. Superman deserves the time and space in the spotlight as a pop culture titan, as a guiding light for humanity, as a character within which we can see a better path for ourselves, a character in which we could place our hopes and dreams for the future, for tomorrow, that maybe, just maybe, it's not all as bad as it seems. There are going to be people out there who see this Superman and think to themselves, maybe there's a better version of me in here somewhere that I can aspire to be. That maybe, one day, I could be like the Man of Steel. I could bring a little bit of hope to someone's life. But characters like Superman make us believe that it's possible and prove to us that one day we can get there. And one day we will. Thanks for watching.